Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashley Galliard, and thank you for joining me on this cold winter afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to be a part of this webinar. And I'm hoping to warm you up a little bit with a bit of inspiration. Hi, Tony. Thanks for joining us. I want to first of all just start by saying thank you to Eugene and the We Speak team. I think this is such a great initiative, great business that they've got going, and thanks for this opportunity. So I really look forward to this. This is my first webinar with them, and I look forward to sharing some information with you today. So just a little bit of background. I'm going to open into my slides here. Give me 1 second. Hi, Peter. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. You may or may not know I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I'm also a nutrition coach, and I've been in the business for about 25 years or so, and in that time we've worked with such a vast array of people, from elite level athletes to people wanting to run the comrades, to people just wanting to lose weight and to transform their lives. And I think I'm quite a simple person, because what gets me up in the morning more than anything else, it's not about high performance. It's not about people losing massive amounts of weight or anything like that. What gets me up in the morning is to see people changing their lives to the point where they can feel happy in their own skin. So getting people to love themselves and to feel comfortable and happy in their own skin is really what I get up for, and that's really what this is about. It's about transforming mind and body and overcoming 3 limiting mindsets that we're going to talk about on the way to do that. So to start with, we ask ourselves a question: what do you want? And it's interesting. We did a survey in a company recently. We actually did a 12-week transformation program within the company. And the things that come up all the time are these things: to feel comfortable in my own skin, to feel in control, and to learn to love myself. So when we started the transformation program, we said, what are you wanting to get most out of this program? And more than 90% of people listed this as one of the major things that they want to get out of the program. Only about 60% of people listed weight loss, which was interesting, because the majority of people, probably 90% plus on that program, needed weight loss. So the interesting thing that this tells us is that weight loss, or losing a lot of weight, does not necessarily equate to feeling comfortable in your own skin. It doesn't equate to you loving yourself or respecting yourself anymore. And we've seen people that have lost huge amounts of weight, and when they look in the mirror, they still don't like the person looking back at them. And the flip side of that is that we've seen people lose relatively little weight, but discover new things about themselves, how much they can do, how well they can move. And there's a swagger about them. There's a sexiness about them. They start to love themselves, irrespective of the actual physical results that they've gotten. And their whole, everything about them changes. So it's a very, very interesting distinction between actually losing weight and learning to feel comfortable in your own skin. The other things that come up, people get tired of restrictive diets. They get tired of the reward. They want the reward to be worth the sacrifice. So it's almost like the law of diminishing returns, that people put in all this effort and they're doing all the wrong things, and the reward just doesn't seem worth the effort, and so eventually they give up. And then to find motivation, and we're going to talk more about motivation today and what it actually means. It's not just that warm and fuzzy feeling of wanting to get active and to do things differently. There's a lot more to it, and we're going to discuss that in quite a lot of detail. So see, Tony, to be happy. That is a big one. That's ultimately what people want, and their physicality and the emotional link between the physicality and happiness is a very, very big one, which we're going to explore in more detail now. So when we look at those questions, you say, what is holding you back from living your best life? And we identify basically two sets of factors. So you've got your external factors. So this is COVID-19. This is what the world is throwing at you. Work pressures, it's family pressures. You've got things like ridiculous work hours. And I find that people working at home are probably working longer hours than what they do when they go to the office, because you actually never get to switch off. Family pressures. And when we talk about family pressures, when people embark on a program to transform their health and to transform the well-being in their lives, very often they're not given the support from family. So the family are still stuck in their old ways, and for you to actually change your eating habits and change your exercise habits becomes very, very difficult. So apart from just the responsibilities that you have to the family, and with extra schooling for the kids that you have to now do from home, all those extra additional pressures, is also having the support of the family that are external factors that can hold you back in this process. Money, of course, money is always an object. You know that you need to seek professional help, and you need to join a gym, and you don't always have the finances to do it. And the big one that always comes up is time. All right, so you've got all these external factors coming at you, and it ends in a big explosion. I think that's how women explode. It's a beautiful, pretty explosion. I think with men, it's snot and tears and blood everywhere. So that's definitely a woman explosion. But the point is that these are external factors that are coming at you, that are making it very, very difficult for you to change your lifestyle. But what's interesting is that it's always going to be difficult. These factors are always going to be there. You can exercise some degree of control over them, but you're never going to be able to control them fully. So it's not about changing the external factors. It's not about suddenly buying more time in the day, or it's not about changing things that you can't control. It's about working on the internal factors to navigate these external factors of life, and be one of those people that, despite all these pressures, despite the time constraints, the family pressures and everything else, can still get up and achieve what they aim to achieve in terms of their health and fitness. Yeah, I agree with you, Peter. It's, for me to work from home as well, it's I'm actually, there's a lot that I'm loving about it, but you kind of never switch off, and I think one has to guard against that as well. So yeah, that's a one that we're all facing quite a bit at this time. So I want to direct you to the first poll, the first question. Having looked at those external factors, what is the single biggest external factor holding you back? And you can probably identify all those factors. And if those are all equal, then that's also fine. But I want you to look and try and identify the single biggest factor that is holding you back from achieving your goals and transforming. And these are external factors that we're looking at. So I'll give you a minute or so to do that. All right, so see what's coming up there is work pressures. We are at 20%, and it's already been mentioned, the pressures of working at home. Time pressures are 60%, and I think all these things go hand in hand. Work, family, finances, time, they all kind of culminate in pressures that are placed on our time. So yeah, thank you for that. Those are big factors, and we're going to see how we can work on the internal factors to actually overcome these factors. Because at the moment with what I'm doing at work, I've got, and I'm sure you guys can identify with this, is that you have these projects to complete, or you have so much that you have to get through in the week, and it seems like a massive amount of work. And you say to yourself, if I can just get through this week, next week is going to be a little bit easier. And then something else comes along, and then you've got more work next week, and it's a cycle that just keeps on going. So this pursuit to try and find more time is almost like a never-ending pursuit, and it's not not something that you're ever going to necessarily get on top of, but the way in which we manage ourselves internally, and our mindsets around time and these pressures that we've mentioned is the key to changing these factors. So let's move on and let's look at the 3 limiting mindsets that hold people back. So we're now looking at internal factors. We've looked at the factors that the world throws at us that makes it difficult for us to actually transform and achieve our goals. Now we're looking at the things within ourselves that we can control that are actually holding us back. All right, so we have the first mindset, the all or nothing mindset, which I'm going to talk through now. The second mindset is the restriction mindset. And the third mindset is the I'm not worthy mindset. There are a number of other mindsets, but these are 3 key ones and 3 pitfalls that people fall into. So let's look at the all or nothing mindset. So this is something that is interesting because all or nothing, it's almost worn as a badge of honor. If you ask people the question, why don't you do this, or why haven't you done this, or what is, why don't you do more? It's the answer comes that I'm an all or nothing person. I either commit fully or I don't do it at all. I'll run 20 kilometers a day, or I'll sit on the couch and watch TV. And what, for me, in my experience in the last 20 odd years of being in this industry, a lot of people fall into this category. And my belief is, and what I've found with people is that there tends to be people that hold this belief. There tends to be a fear of failure. So the reasoning is something along these lines, that if I set out to do something that is fairly easy to achieve, let's say I set out to walk 15 minutes a day, and for some reason I don't do that and I don't achieve that, how is that going to affect my self-esteem? How am I going to feel? I'm going to feel like a loser. I'm going to feel that I'm not capable of doing anything. So instead of setting a doable, manageable goal, the tendency is to say, let's shoot for the stars. Let's set the bar so high that if we achieve it, wonderful. But if we don't, we've got that safety net to say that, well, I really gave it a good go, and it was set so high. It was such a difficult task to do anyway that, it's no wonder that I failed. Anyone else would have failed as well. Or it's an opportunity to blame external factors, like I didn't have the time because I couldn't do my 2 hours of exercise a day, or couldn't get to the shops to buy my special ingredients for my food. And so you set that bar very high, and then failure is something that becomes a little bit more easy for you to accept because the task to start with was so difficult in the beginning. So I like to use the analogy, and I think everybody has they have that Uncle Joe that is around the braai. When the guys are around the braai and you tell a story, it can be about anything. It can be about a new business that you've opened or a business venture that you're going into, and Uncle Joe will pipe up and he'll say, "Yes, that reminds me of when we used to, years ago when I was a youngster and I wanted to start a factory or a paper mill, and it was some massive elaborate scheme that he wanted to start, and because of X, Y, and Z, somebody screwed him over, or some external circumstances, he couldn't do it, and somebody let him down, and the whole thing fell apart. So he set his goals very, very high, and then he dropped it. And it's kind of, he's become satisfied with the story. So it becomes a case of, as long as I've got the story, as long as I can keep telling myself that story and believe in the story, it's good enough. But at the end of the day, those outcomes, the transformation, the things that he's setting out to do never materialize. And that leaves the person with a feeling of emptiness, a lack of fulfillment, and so many people fall into that category. So that's the all or nothing mindset. And what usually happens is it usually ends in nothing. It very seldom ends in the all side of the equation. The restriction mindset. Now, this goes hand in hand with all or nothing, particularly when it comes to health and fitness. there's a tendency that if you're going to lose weight and you have this all or nothing mindset, you're going to embark on a diet that looks the most extreme. So something that cuts out the most things or has the most elaborate, strange formula that restricts everything, that looks like the right thing for you. And so instead of having this mindset that I'm going to start something new, I'm going to start something exciting, I'm going to start doing something more, it's a case of let's cut everything, let's lose weight, let's restrict calories, let's cut out food groups, let's stop doing the things that we enjoy. And it's a very, very negative, restrictive mindset. Whereas we should be thinking, we should reverse that, and we should say, what are the things, the healthy foods that I do enjoy? Let me eat more of those things. Let me do more of the exercises I enjoy. I've been told I shouldn't do running because that's not going to help me, but I enjoy running, so let me do more of that. And instead of thinking more, we're thinking less, cut, restrict everything, and it's a negative cycle that usually only restricts progress. And then the third mindset is the I'm not worthy mindset. Now, this is something that I think is so common to almost all of us at some point, and some people to a greater extent than other people. And this is born out of, I think, childhood experiences when you are growing up and a significant other, your mom or your dad or your uncle says, little Johnny's never going to be good at sport because he's got two left legs. And, he might be good at something else. Maybe he should get an office job, but he's never going to be a sportsman. Or little Jane is always going to struggle with her weight because she's big boned. Or little Susie is a Jones, and the Joneses are not good at this, and we're never going to achieve anything physically, or we like our food too much, so we're going to struggle with weight. And these kinds of ideas are reinforced. When kids are told that they're clumsy and they shouldn't be doing things, you take that on. You believe that as a child, and you start acting those things out. And without getting too deep into the psychology of things, your behaviors start reflecting what you've been told, and you start internalizing it and it becomes reinforced. Now, what's interesting is that there was a great American Olympian, I think his name was Dan Millman, and he wrote a book, and in his book he said that these things that we're told as kids are nothing more than a shadow of a shadow. It's a complete fabrication. It's completely untrue. And yet we've taken them on as fact. We believe it to be true. We believe that we are not cut out for physical activity. We believe that we're big boned, therefore we're never going to be able to lose weight. We believe that we have these limitations that are holding us back because we've been told that we have those limitations. And I think what's been most satisfying about the 25 years or so that I've been in this industry is that we've seen people going from literally couch potatoes in the space of a year to running the Comrades Marathon because they suddenly realize that they've got these physical bodies that are very, very capable of achieving great things. We've seen women that are lifting 100 kilograms from not being able to stand up out of a chair because they suddenly realize that I've got the strength that I never knew that I had, and that I've always been told that I didn't have. And it's like a revelation to people that they are actually capable and they can do things. And this is not to say that everybody has the ability to be an elite athlete or an Olympian. That's not the case at all. There's certain things you're going to be good at and certain things you're not going to be brilliant at. But everybody has the ability to use their bodies to be physically capable and to achieve pretty much anything that you want to do physically in your goals to transform your body. So that limiting mindset, I'm not worthy, is a very, very big factor that holds people back. And we're going to look at how we can overcome these in just a minute. But first of all, I want to do a second poll now. I want you to look at the question, what limiting mindsets are holding you back? And the options are all or nothing, restriction, I'm not worthy. It could be a combination of all three. It sometimes is. or maybe it's none of the above, maybe it's something else. But yeah, if you just do that for me quickly. Okay. So we've got most people answered. We'll just give another few seconds there. All right, I think we've got one or two answers to go. All right, so I think that's most of it. So what's interesting is there's a combination of all three. 33%, there's a combination of all three, and it's interesting how they do go hand in hand, and it's all linked to that terrible fear of failing and letting yourself down, and how that's going to affect your self-esteem. So that's often the case, that all three of those go hand in hand. I'm not worthy. 33% said that I'm not worthy. So that's also a big one. There's that feeling that you're not cut out for this, you can't do it, that is holding you back. Restriction is 17%, and that all or nothing mindset is 17% as well. So that's very interesting. Thank you for that feedback. And a combination of all three, I think, is so often the case that they do go hand in hand there. So let's take it further now. Let's look at knowing that we've got these external factors that are making things difficult anyway. And it's never going to be easy. We know that because of these external factors that are ever present, they're always there. And then we've got these internal factors that are holding us back, putting limitations on us, limiting our mindsets, limiting what we can achieve. How do we actually go about overcoming this? So that's the next phase of what we're going to explore. And we're going to talk a little bit about motivation. So we have two types of motivation. The first type of motivation is extrinsic motivation. Now, extrinsic motivation is it's doing something for a reward, or doing something to avoid punishment. So to give you an example, a reward might be, I want to lose weight, or I want to start an exercise routine so I can look great, so I can get the approval of others. So other people can say, wow, look how good you get looking, and look how much weight you're losing. There's nothing wrong with it. That's absolutely fine. But that's an example of extrinsic motivation. You're doing it so that you can get that reassurance and that approval of others. It also might be something, and you see it a lot in schools, and I always hate it because we work with kids, but you'll see that the coach will say, you're going to run to the other end of the rugby post, and you're going to come back, and you've got to do it in under a minute, and if you don't do it in under a minute, you're going to do 20 push-ups. So the kids run there and back, and they do it as quickly as they can to avoid punishment, which is exercise. And so that negative association with exercise comes up every time. But so there's a case of doing something to avoid punishment. Another interesting thing that we see often when people will embark on something to avoid punishment is actually punishing yourself. So often we see that people will exercise, they'll go for a run or go for a walk, and if they don't exercise, they tend to go and binge eat because they feel so bad about the fact that they missed that exercise session that on an unconscious level, there's almost that punishment that I've lost it all and I'm going to just eat and I'm going to just throw in the towel. So it's almost a case of, if I don't exercise, I'm going to punish myself. So the exercise becomes a way of avoiding that punishment that you inflict on yourself. So and that's not a healthy state. That's not a place where you want to be. It's sometimes a place where you start out and you move forward from there, but you don't want to be living in that extrinsic motivation, where you're doing things only for rewards or for avoiding punishment. So really what we want to do is we want to swim in the opposite direction like that little yellowfish, and we want to move towards intrinsic motivation. And when you're talking about intrinsic motivation, you're talking about things that have a bigger meaning. You're talking about doing something because you value something. It becomes a part of your value systems. It becomes a part of your goal system. You're looking at words like things like passion, purpose, growth opportunities, value. It's an act of free will. It's not necessarily a warm and fuzzy feeling. It's that feeling where you wake up at 6 in the morning and the last thing you want to do is go and exercise or go for a run or whatever the case is. But you do it because that's part of your value system. That's part of what you believe in. It's part of an intrinsic thing that drives you forward. So that takes time, but ultimately, when we can get into that intrinsic motivation state, that is when the commitment to exercise and to changing your lifestyle is a big one and becomes real. So how do we do that? How do we get to that state of intrinsic motivation? So the way forward is and to be intrinsically motivated, there's the need for what we call autonomy. So there's a need to take ownership of your own well-being. So whatever you're embarking on from a transformation, a health, fitness, and nutrition point of view, you have to take ownership. That has to be uniquely yours. You need to buy into it, and you need to be in control of that process. So it needs to be a self-directed decision towards the journey that you're going to take and the path that you're going to take. There's the need for, sorry, I'm just battling to see that. There's a need to develop competence. And we've talked about this before when we've talked about those clients that suddenly realize that they can do things they never thought they could do before. They've developed a degree of competence in their abilities, and then that's building their confidence, and they know that they can then achieve. And as soon as they feel competent about achieving something, suddenly they start enjoying the process and they start becoming intrinsically motivated. And then the need for social connectedness. This is a big one. We are social beings, and I think the thing with COVID is I think it's made things very, very difficult from their social connectedness point of view. But at the same time, it's also brought people closer through things like webinars, through the use of technology, to actually share experiences and to realize that there are other people out there in the same boat. So social connectedness is feeling a sense of belonging to a group. So you might belong to a cycling group, or you might belong to a mother's group, and you all in the same boat, and you all have the same challenges, and you can connect and feel a part of something. So to develop that intrinsic motivation, we need to develop autonomy, we need to develop competence in your abilities, and social connectedness. Now I'm going to move away from this for a little bit because I want to use an analogy, and I want to try to bring this back to real life and look at why fad diets don't work. We're going to talk through this a little bit. And we're going to see if we can identify some of the things that we've talked about already when we talk about fad diets. So we're going to talk about things like all or nothing, restriction, I'm not worthy, and so on. So what happens with fad diets is there's this promise of this amazing linear curve. Okay, so you can see the arrow going straight up. If you buy into this plan, if you buy into our 8-week transformation diet, you're going to get these unbelievable, amazing results. Okay, and they make promises like you can eat anything you like. So you buy into this, you think this is fantastic. Let's do this. It sounds like the right thing for me. And then you find out that you can eat anything you like on a Thursday, but then after you've eaten anything you like, you have to start restricting carbohydrates every day for the next 4 days until you're completely off carbohydrates. And then you have a protein-only day, followed by a salad-only day, and so on and so on and so on. So the point is that they become very, very prescriptive. They become very, very restrictive. So you can only do certain things, and they become very much all or nothing. So if you do this and you follow our way and you follow it to the T and you all in and you committed, then you're going to get the results. And if you don't get the results, well, that's your fault. That's something that you did wrong. And of course, it's an impossible act to follow. So what happens is invariably you fall off the wagon, and this is what happens. So you get that nice, in the beginning, you get that nice sort of upward curve where you're losing weight and you're looking good. And then it becomes too hard to sustain with all the external pressures of life and everything on you. And you start to dip and then you crash. And of course, that I'm not worthy mindset starts to kick in again, because you blame yourself. You reason that I never got this right. If I could only have stuck to the plan, I would have done fine, but I dropped the ball. It's my fault. And the people that are selling these diets are relying on you doing that. They're hoping that you're going to do that. And what's interesting is that because of the mindsets, if you're holding those beliefs, those all or nothing mindsets, the restriction and the I'm not worthy mindset, you tend to go towards the fad diets because it's something that you're familiar with. It's something that you know that you feel comfortable with. And you're reinforcing those mindsets that are ultimately holding you back. So that's why fad diets don't work. And what's interesting, just to go back to the autonomy side of this, the diets that people are putting out there as fad diets are not your diets. Those are somebody else's generic plans that they've said, if you follow this, you're going to do well. And usually it's just calorie restriction, which is why you lose the weight in the beginning. You haven't had any control over that process. You haven't had any autonomy in making the decision that this is the route that I want to take. This is the plan that I want to set before myself. You don't feel any degree of competence because once again, you've done something that is all or nothing. The bar was set so high and you've dropped the ball. So you haven't gained any competence. You've lost confidence in your abilities. And instead of becoming socially connected to something bigger, you start to withdraw and you become isolated and you think, I can't do this. This is not me. I'm not cut out for this. So you can see how the diet industry and the health and fitness industry feeds into those three negative mindsets. And we're now going to look at what steps we can take. How do you actually overcome this? How do you step out of this downward spiral? Real life, just to go back to the previous slide, is about a series of ups and downs. All right, so you can see the curve is going upwards, but you make progress, you fail a little bit. You fall off the wagon, you make progress, you plateau, you make progress, you plateau. And in real life, it's about celebrating all the times that you get up. It's not about berating yourself every time you fall. It's about saying, well, I did it. I stopped, I fell off the wagon, life got too hectic, but I got on again. And the progress is linear, not linear, it's staggered, but it's upwards. All right, so we're going to look at how do you actually change this? How do you formulate new habits? How do you become autonomous and intrinsically motivated? Essentially, that's what we're talking about. And the first thing is decide. Okay, and I've got a picture of bees there because there's a process that says it's called the swarm of bees. Okay, so the swarm of behaviors. Sorry, I just see there's a fixed audio. There was an audio problem. Can everybody just give me a thumbs up or anything if you can hear me? Okay, it seems to be fixed now. So, okay, thanks, Tony. Great. So, so the first thing is decide. So decide on behaviors. What behaviors do you want to change? And write them down. Literally go through the process of jotting them down, brainstorm them. Just put as many behaviors as you feel that you want to change. Write them down. Don't restrict yourself. Don't judge yourself. Just write those behaviors down. The next step in the process is once you've written those behaviors down, go through a process of ordering them, look at them, study them, and say, which behaviors can I do? Which behaviors are realistic? Which behaviors fall within my capabilities right now, given the pressures that I'm under, and prioritize those behaviors. Okay, and then the next step, the step 2 in the 5-step process is the 90% confidence rule. Once you've got your behaviors and you've said the following behaviors or following 5 or 6 or 2 or 3 behaviors are things that I know that I can achieve, you need to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. If you're not coming up with 90% confident that you can achieve that behavior, then you need to go back to the drawing board. Because remember, this is about developing competence. It's about developing confidence. It's about being able to say, I can achieve, and I'm ready to celebrate those small victories. So the 90% confidence rule is important. If you're coming up short of that 90%, you need to take a step back and you need to say, I need to make that behavior that I've decided on easier. Or maybe I've taken on too many behaviors. Maybe I've got 6 behaviors that I want to implement and want to change. And they might be small behaviors, but 6 is too many for me right now. So let's start with 3 behaviors. Take it back and be 90% confident that you can commit to those new behaviors that you decide on a daily basis. And then the next step is commit. Make the commitment to whatever it is that you've changed, whether it's 5 minutes of extra sleep a night, or okay, that's a bit of a ridiculous one because I don't think 5 minutes is going to make a big difference. But maybe it's 5 minutes of reading before you go to bed, or it might be. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It can be a 15-minute walk every day, or it can be eating an extra portion of vegetables a day. Whatever the thing is that you decide on, the behavior that you're wanting to change that is going to lead towards your goal, commit to it. And block out all the background noise. Because what you're going to get, particularly in health and fitness, is you're going to get a lot of comments. You're going to get a lot of people saying, don't do it that way, do it this way. That is the wrong way. Don't do paleo, do banting, don't do banting. Vegetarianism is the only way to go. And there's so much background noise that you need to actually give yourself permission to cut that out and decide on your plan forward. This is developing autonomy for you. This is deciding what you are capable of doing and what you can commit to. And then finally, we're looking at a reward system, and we're looking at something called the ABCs. All right, and the ABCs is you're looking at anchor movements, tiny behaviors, and celebrations. All right, so how do you commit to something? You need a system that is going to help you to commit to something. And what this system is designed by somebody by the name of BJ Fogg. And I can also make this available to you if you just drop me a line after this. But what it is saying essentially is that when you've decided on the behavior, you need a trigger. You need something that's going to help you to commit to that behavior. So to give you an example, let's say that your new behavior is to drink more water every day. So your anchor movement is to have a glass of water in your bathroom so that you know that, or a glass in your bathroom, you know that when you go to the bathroom every morning, your anchor movement, A, is to fill the glass up with water. Your behavior is to drink the water. And once you've done that, give yourself a high five. Give yourself a bit of a pat on the back. Look yourself in the mirror and affirm that and say, I did this. I got this right. I committed to the behavior that I said I would commit to. And you will be amazed. We've seen it time and time again in our industry that people have mentioned the example of somebody that ran the Comrades Marathon in the space of just over a year. That was applying this philosophy. Small movements, behaviors that he could commit to, building on those behaviors, building on those habits until they became bigger things, and they eventually snowballed into something really, really great. So this is the way that you develop autonomy. This is the way that you move away from the all or nothing mindset and you start developing belief in your ability to do things. So just a quick recap. The core message here is that life is tough. There are a lot of external factors that are thrown at us, things that we can't necessarily manage. So the internal factors, the limiting mindsets, the all or nothing mindset, the I'm not worthy mindset, and the restrictive mindset, we can change those factors. We can change those mindsets by slowly doing things that are developing autonomy, developing a level of competence, and developing a social connectedness with other people that are in the same boat. So I know this was a little bit of a crash course in this. It's a big topic that we can take a lot further, but thank you very much for participating. Thank you for the feedback in the polls and for the comments as well. And yeah, I think that's all from me. I am offering, oh, there you go. That just popped up. Okay, so we've got some great coaching offers, half price coaching at $299. That is usually a 600 Rand coaching thing just to get you on track, where we actually take you through the process of teaching these behaviors and getting you on the path where healthy habits and healthy lifestyle become a part of everyday life. So I hope to see you there. If you click on the link, you can leave your name with me and I'll be in touch with you. And yeah, thanks again for participating, and we'll see you soon, hopefully. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for being a part of it.